I remember the formation or the public announcement that a association of individuals existed called the Free University in about the mid 80s. There were a number of magazines in existence at the time, and there was a whole number of people who might be called disaffected, uh, cultural workers of various descriptions, as well as people who might not be in employment, teachers, social workers, artists, writers, activists. And the Free University was an umbrella for bringing all of those people together in a common framework to discuss issues outside of the formal education setting,
So how
basically.
did it start? I mean, somebody say we're going to have a.
The catalyst of it all, must be said, was Peter Kravitz, who was the editor of the Edinburgh Review at the time. At that time, he was supporting some what was then relatively emerging writers like James Kelman, Tom Leonard, and Alistair Gray, who all had some involvement in the Free University Network. Through the Edinburgh Review, Peter organised talks and events and readings, which I think attracted a lot of people from the margins to them, and the Free University took shape. I mean, Peter himself acknowledged the existence of the Free International University that people like Joseph Beuys and other uh, libertarian educationalists were involved in. But it just seemed to be a very kind of common sense, practical approach to bringing people together to discuss issues to do with where is the social space in which people gather to discuss things. Where do you go for to meet friends and not have to pay £3 for a cup of coffee?
How did you? I mean, this is pre-internet,
It was
email,
pre-internet, yes.
how
This
did,
was well, it was
pre-telephone early,
Amstrad computers, but I think most of the communications were in a typewriter.
sending letters.
Snail mail still works, in terms of communication. It was either that or telephones, but there was a sense of a social network.
Mm.
And I can't remember before email how we
But
all
I think,
communicated, but there was network. There was a, ne- a network of things through which information passed. Transmission was in its early days. There was Edinburgh Review. There was a number of other magazines. It was Variant. There was Here and Now. There was Open World Poetics. So there was kind of different groupings of people. And the Free University was a way where they intersected. When I was involved in transmission at the time, through the Edinburgh Review, we organised a series of readings, which were, again, the Edinburgh Review kind of more or less kind of organised them. We just kind of hosted them. Um, I was reading by Kelman Leonard and Jeff Torrington, who died 2 days ago. That was pretty kind of memorable. A whole kind of number of things. And there was meetings held every fortnight. They were regular meetings. So if you didn't hear from anybody, you knew that something was on in 2 weeks' time. And these meetings were usually held was it Charing Cross Housing Association. So I mean, what can I? It was a whole. Somebody would come along and talk about football. Somebody would come along and talk about uh, health issues, cultural issues, whole kind of range of things that anybody could go along to. And they were, as the name describes, it was an informal learning situation amongst people.
But the thing I mentioned, the internet, it's quite good then because you had to print posters yourself and they're hand deliver them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always lots of contact.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be speaking to people, which was part of the idea about socialising.
Yeah.
Whereas now, a lot of it tends to be the internet, and
Yeah.
you just get millions of information. It's quite good then when you didn't have the internet, but you had more sort of human contact
Yeah.
rather
I think
than.
that was very important
Mm.
to it. The idea of the social hub and the need for people to come together in the sense of a town hall approach to politics, getting people together and everybody had an equal voice. At least that was the intention. Some people talk longer and louder than others, however, but the idea is that everyone can participate and everyone can understand or be given the tools to understand the most complex of issues, and that's something that kind of common sense philosophy is about. But there was a couple of kind of key events that really kind of marked the period in which the Free University existed, and the one in 1987 was the Scratch Parliament that happened through in Edinburgh, and this was, the idea of a people's parliament. And again, it was Peter Kravitz who kind of really organised that event. And the latter one in 1990 was the conference at the Pearson Institute in Govan called Self-Determination and Power, at which Noam Chomsky gave a talk, and alongside the Scottish philosopher George Davy. At that event, that attracted people from throughout the UK and abroad. There was Russian writers there. There was people involved in the kind of Black Parents movement in London. John LaRose, who was one of the founding members of that, and also the Caribbean arts movement, he was very much a kind of active participant at that event as well. And that was a kind of interesting moment of bringing all of those things together.